Hello, everybody, and welcome to Columbia Climate School's graduate info session. Today, we're going to be action-packed talking about both the MA Climate and Society program and the MS in Climate program. And joining us today is our fantastic recent alum, Taylor Atkinson, who's going to be sharing a little bit more about her experiences in the learning community and what she's been up to lately. So we can't wait. As we are just allowing some additional participants to log in and join the session, I do this for every session, so forgive me for those of you that might have attended multiple, but what I always love to do is just ask that you, in the Q&A, share with us where you are joining us from. It's always a fun exercise. Taylor, hello, hello. Share with us where you're joining us from, city and state or country. We love to see just how diverse our prospective student population is. This truly is my favorite part, Taylor. Burlington, Vermont, welcome, Ben. Sydney, Brooklyn, awesome. Alyssa's in NYC as well. Welcome, Alyssa. Feel free to put a borough in if you so choose. From Nigeria, welcome, John. We have Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome, Owen. This is going to be a great session today. I think it's going to be a little more intimate, which we love. Columbus, Ohio. Excellent. Welcome. Noel, star of the show, Noel. So glad you can make it again from New Delhi. New York, New York. Welcome, welcome. Cambridge, Bangalore, Hudson River Valley, Sleepy Hollow. That's fun. Thanks, Christopher, for joining. Dilip's in Nepal. Welcome, Dilip. If anybody else wants to go ahead and add. This is great. White Plains, New York. Excellent and welcome. Okay, excellent. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Alfred Ayub. I am working in admissions here at Columbia Climate School. Specifically, we are going to be detailing our graduate programs, the MA in Climate and Society, and our new MS in Climate program. And in terms of the agenda, we're going to go ahead and give you a bit of an overview of Columbia Climate School and our history. I would say our recent history, but also our longstanding history within Columbia University. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the student profile of a Columbia Climate student, so who studies here. And then we'll deep dive into the degree programs, the MA and the MS, what's their overlapping characteristics, what makes them different. We'll also touch on their professional development opportunities within Columbia Climate School, financial aid, and then we will conclude with the application process. But we have a very special guest speaker joining us today, and I think so often prospective students most appreciate getting a chance to speak with both current students, but also especially recent alumni to kind of hear their perspectives and lived experiences, their interest in the climate space, and their climate story. So without further ado, I'd like to now introduce you to Taylor Atkinson. Taylor is going to be speaking at certain key moments of the presentation today, certainly talking about the core, her elective journey, and what she's been up to since. But what I would love to begin, Taylor, is if you could share with us a little bit more kind of an introduction to who you are, your education and professional background, and your motivations for joining the climate school. That would be great.
Yeah, of course. Good morning. Sorry, it's a little dark where I am. I'm in Seattle. I'm visiting my parents for the holiday season. But yeah, I was a working professional. I owned a design firm, and I slowly became more passionate about like sustainability and specifically like the waste aspect of it. And I started incorporating that into my business and then volunteering at like state level policy projects and things like that. And then also educating other designers in my local area through like an association chapter. And I just decided I wanted to go more in that direction. I felt more fulfilled doing my volunteer projects and educating people and kind of opening their eyes to our waste problem. And so, yeah, I decided to sell my business and go back to school and moved across the country, and I don't regret one thing of it. So yeah, that's kind of my origin story and my background. And now I'm actually working in waste management for a private company. Kind of hope to eventually go into municipal level policy. That would be kind of my goal. But I'm really enjoying the work, and coming from an art background, it's a perfect stepping stone.
That's brilliant, Taylor. And just so you guys know, there is going to be a Q&A toward the end, but as you have questions, Taylor actually has a very interesting profile as somebody who was an entrepreneur, owned her own business, may not have been the classic earth science, so to speak, student that's interested in transition to climate. So feel free as the session continues, if you do have specific questions, feel free to use the Q&A to ask Taylor, but I also want to note this is not the end of hearing from Taylor. Taylor is going to speak at certain key moments in the presentation and share a little bit more nuance about her experiences in the program. But thank you so much, Taylor, for that intro. I appreciate it. So in terms of the Columbia Climate School itself, I like to just give this overarching introduction just to give you a better sense. We are the newest school within Columbia University, but let me go back a little bit more in time. So Columbia University itself is the fifth oldest university in the United States and the oldest in the state of New York. In terms of Columbia University's kind of structure, you can think of it almost as the blueprint of major research institutions in the United States. When you say Columbia University, over 20 different distinct schools fall underneath that title of Columbia University. The majority of them being graduate schools. So you can think of, for example, Columbia Law School, Columbia Business School, Columbia School of Journalism. They administer the Pulitzer Prize each year. Columbia School of Social Work, the oldest school of social work in the United States. The School of International and Public Affairs. The list goes on. Uh, and the newest school within that list is Columbia Climate School. So we were announced in 2020. We formally launched in 2021. And our ethos is that the world requires knowledgeable leaders to work with businesses, communities, governments, and civil society to address the climate crisis. Columbia Climate School's graduate degree programs and other learning opportunities provide an interdisciplinary, and we can't stress that enough, it has to be interdisciplinary, knowledge base for climate leaders with diverse interests and backgrounds. So, again, you'll see there's businesses, there's governments. So we're talking the private sector, the public sector. There's, of course, the science behind climate. Again, we can't emphasize enough the interdisciplinary nature of this school, and nothing is fleshed out even more so than when you look at the listing of our faculty, which keeps growing, which we're very excited about. But in terms of Columbia Climate School, I mentioned earlier that we might be the newest school, but we have a much longer standing history within Columbia University. And you'll notice that there are three distinct photographs on this slide. The first photograph I want to highlight is the photograph on the lower right-hand side. That might not read to you classic Columbia University. That doesn't look like New York City, does it? And it's not. It's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, which is located in Palisades, New York. This is an earth science research campus, one of the best in the world, located within the Columbia Climate School organization structure. And Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, in fact, is celebrating its 75th anniversary this year within Columbia University. There's over 300 PhD level researchers in Earth, environmental science, climate science based at Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. Many of our students perform research at Lamont, interestingly. And in terms of access to Lamont, we have a shuttle bus that goes up there every single hour. The next photograph I want to highlight is the lower left-hand corner. That's a classic picture of Morningside Heights. That's our main campus here at Columbia University, and where many courses at Columbia Climate School are housed. And then finally, the middle photograph is the Forum Building. The Forum Building is located at 125th and Broadway. It's on our new Manhattanville campus, which is a campus that opened up within the last 5 years, 5 to 6 years, I would say. Many of our other graduate schools have since migrated to Manhattanville. The climate school specifically houses their academic affairs team in the Forum Building. So many of our Administrators are based there, as are many of our faculty members housed at the Forum building. And quite a few of your core courses, your climate core courses, are conducted in the Forum auditorium. And we'll talk about the core in the near future. So when we talk about Columbia Climate School, we have a very unique footprint in that we really are located on 3 different locations within Columbia University. In terms of the student profile of Columbia University, for our most recent cohort, so the cohort that started in fall of 2024, and I will say, to be transparent, these are strictly MA in Climate and Society students that I'm referring to, as the MS in Climate program has not officially started yet. That would start in the fall 2025, but currently we have just over 120 MA Climate and Society students. About 44% are international, 27 countries of citizenship are represented, and 18 states are represented among our domestic students. Another fact that we really are very proud of is that about 15% of the students in our cohort are first-generation college students, or the students or the first in their family to attend a college or university. And then finally, the average age in the cohort is 26 years old. Another data point that I think is very interesting is the diverse nature of the learning community in terms of their academic backgrounds. You would think that you're coming to a climate school, so you might think, oh, well, the majority of students must have maybe a science background if that's the case. And that's actually simply not the case. About 2/3 of the learning community that enrolled in Columbia Climate School have social science degrees. So think of it as anthropology, political science, economics, urban planning, sociology, um, and then international relations. We also, in that bucket, also include students with business degrees. So, if you have for example, a finance degree, which we've been seeing an increasing number of students with finance undergraduate degrees join the program, that would be a social science for our classifications. And then about the remaining 1/3 come from more of a STEM background. So natural and earth sciences, engineering. So again, you could think of it as about 2/3 social science, 1/3 STEM background. In terms of the 2-degree programs that we are summarizing today, the first one is the MA Climate and Society program. This is a 1-year, 3-semester, 35 credit hour program. In terms of enrollment plans, we offer this program full-time, but we also have a small cohort of part-time learners in the MA Climate and Society program. To give you an example, in Taylor's cohort, there were 4 students that were part-time. This year, we have 8 students that are part-time, and we'll talk about part-time enrollment shortly. In terms of the practical experience, the MA in Climate and Society program for next year will exclusively offer a capstone in the final semester. And I will say, for any international students joining us, it is a STEM designated program. So to give you a quick snapshot of comparison, the newest program, the program that was announced in September of 2024 and will begin its first cohort in fall of 2025, is the MS in Climate program. In terms of this credit hour load, it's a 50 credit hour program. You're looking at a 4-semester timeline, 21 months to be specific in terms of length. Its enrollment plan is exclusively full-time, so you have to be full-time in order to enroll in the MS in Climate program. And then in terms of practical experience, you will have both an internship, which will be completed between your first and second year, as well as a capstone in your final semester. And then finally, this program is also a STEM designated program. Again, that's a data point of interest for international students who are interested in potentially longer OPT period to work in the United States. So both are STEM designated programs. So let's begin with the MA Climate and Society program. This is an interdisciplinary graduate degree that trains professionals and academics to understand and address the impacts of climate variability and change on society and the environment. And so through classes and research, students gain knowledge in the physical and social sciences and the humanities as they relate to climate specifically. This is that very brief snapshot of that 3-semester journey. The fall semester, you will primarily be taking climate core courses. I want to be transparent. You'll notice you'll say, Alfred, can I still take electives in that fall? You could take electives. It's not required to take electives in this first fall semester, but you are absolutely able to. If you feel like you have the bandwidth to take additional elective courses, we will have a flat tuition rate at Columbia Climate School. And next year, you could take up to 18 credit hours as a full-time student, and the tuition would remain the same. We also have an Applied Climate 1 experience in the fall semester, which is going to be a lot of case-based learning. And then in the spring semester, you'll continue your climate core. We officially have elective courses built in. Again, I'm sharing with you, you could potentially take electives in the fall semester. I don't want you to feel that it's that rigid. And then you have an Applied Climate 2. And then finally, your summer semester, which is your final semester, you'll be wrapping up your elective courses and also concluding with specifically a capstone workshop. And in fact, my colleague Damaris Diaz, who is helping with the Q&A, she will be sharing a capstone workshop in the chat box. In fact, Damaris, if you want to share it now, we'll talk about capstones in a little bit more detail, but we actually have a website that highlights capstones, the clients that we worked with, the videos, the students that participated. So I think it'll be helpful to review that website for both MA students and MS students. It can be helpful. So now I'll just briefly touch on the climate core, and I will be pausing here because I'm going to love to hear kind of Taylor's experience as well. But in terms of the MA Climate and Society, this coming year, the climate core is going to look a little different. It's an evolution, which we love. There's 2 additions to the climate core this year. Taylor, you might find this interesting. And a lot of it is based on feedback from students in terms of the evolution of the program. So a course that we have always offered as a very popular elective within the climate school is climate justice theory, practice, and policy. That will become a part of the climate core. As we know, certain communities are more greatly impacted by the climate crisis than others, certainly underserved communities. So climate justice is a critical lens that all climate professionals should have. Another new addition is the history of the climate crisis. We're very excited for this course. And then courses that have always existed include climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, dynamics of climate variability and change, which is largely a physics class. I always say, if somebody stops you on the street and says to you, do you believe in climate change? And your response is yes. And then the next question is why? The dynamics class is going to give you the why. You'll be able to explain the science behind climate change to various audiences, whether it's a sophisticated scientist or alternatively, it's somebody in the K-12 space or a policy analyst or a corporate leader. You are going to be able to explain the why. And then finally, quantitative models for climate application. This is going to be the climate data specifically course. This is going to be a course that utilizes R. You're going to look at large climate data sets, be able to tell a story with it, make decisions based off of it. But let me pause there because I think so often students are always curious about the core. And what I want to emphasize here is, as a prospective student joining us today, there's 2 things you have to be hungry for. You have to be hungry for a challenge. You're coming to Columbia Climate School because you're interested in a challenging education. If you aren't interested in a challenge, I will tell you right now, this program is not for you. Okay. So you want to be challenged. And number 2, you have a hunger and a desire for the climate core. I want to emphasize that as well. While there is a phenomenal kind of flexibility within climate school, I think there is absolutely a choose your own adventure lens when we talk about the electives, and Taylor's going to talk about the electives she decided to take. I think you have to have a desire for this climate core, as this is the spinal cord of the program. This is what somebody who might be working in a sustainability consulting role versus a carbon management role versus a climate and public health role or a climate and disaster management role. The through line for all of you is going to be this climate core. So let me pause there. Taylor, I would love to hear kind of your experiences in the climate core, especially, you came from a non kind of classic STEM background. I would love to kind of hear how you found it, how you navigated it.
Yeah, one, I just want to say that one of my favorite, it was an elective, but one of my favorite classes was taught by Sheila Foster, who I believe will be teaching the climate justice class.
Absolutely,
And
Taylor. Thank you for that highlight. Yeah, Sheila
yeah,
Foster is amazing.
she's incredible. So I'm jealous that that's a required class for you guys. So you're gonna have a lot of fun with her. And honestly, like, yeah, as Alfred was saying, like a lot of the electives are more kind of like to choose your own path, but all these cores really, like he said, drew a through line for my other elective classes, and I was actually able to apply what I was learning in the core classes into my electives. And I think it also like made, people who were in the climate school a little bit more impressive because we had the scientific background to then apply to, like, again, I focused on policy, so apply to the policy classes that I was in. So I think that was like really great. And the deep dives that you do, like especially in like mitigation adaptation, are very interesting. And it's not just like US based, it's throughout the world, which sometimes, again, I'm like to focus more municipally because I think local change is so important and it's something that's tangible for most people. But to see like what's going on around the world is amazing. As for challenges, dynamics was challenging, but I really enjoyed how they did, what's it called again, Alfred? Like a split class where,
Yes,
um,
it's absolutely. It's the flipped classroom model. The
yeah,
flipped classroom model where the recordings you're ref. Thank you, Taylor, for noting that. Yes, by all means.
yeah, that was super helpful for me. Like Alfred said, I'm not someone who comes from a STEM background, so I could do the homework and like, the self-taught lessons like at my own pace. Whereas if that was just part of lecture, I probably would have been lost. So that was super helpful. And I love Ming Fang. She's so caring and she just like really cares about each student, and I loved that. And then Quant, not to scare you guys, but like Quant was that was very challenging for me. Although I did love the labs because I felt like that's kind of the work you would be doing, and I loved learning the coding. I thought that was like very interesting and also something that you can apply, like a skill you can add to your resume, that sort of thing. But the quant theory, like that was just like I just buckled up and got through it, and there were definitely tears, but so like Alfred said, if you're up for a challenge, this is it.
That's right. I love that, Taylor. See, you guys are getting the full unfiltered perspective, and I love it. And one thing I want to note, what I love also is Taylor giving highlights. We don't. I need to talk about the faculty more because they are so incredible. Sheila Foster is amazing. She's coming to us with this really deep law background. Ming Fang Ting, who's an incredible scientist who teaches the dynamics course, is just amazing. And she's been years at Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. In fact, Damaris, who's also, as we noted in the chat in the Q&A, Damaris, if you wouldn't mind also copying and pasting our faculty directory, because some names might come up and the students might like to see it. Thank you so much, Taylor, for giving those highlights. So Taylor will be back. Don't worry. Oh, Taylor will be talking a little bit more about the elective journey and kind of how she approached it. So stay tuned. But that's the MA Climate and Society core. And then what we're going to do, I just want to briefly mention now the Climate and Society curriculum for part-time students. So I mentioned earlier that we do have a small, an intimate part-time learning community. I noted Taylor, who graduated this year, she had 4 students in her cohort part-time, so they're wrapping up the program this year. We had another 8 students that joined us this year for fall 24. It's really, students enrolling in the part-time program generally include people with demonstrated like significant work experience in climate or a climate adjacent space, or working professionals currently in any space that can reasonably assert that they can apply the MA Climate and Society program to their current work, or perhaps to easily transition to a climate related field. So, like last year, for example, we had somebody that literally worked in a business consulting practice. And in fact, she was increasingly working in a sustainability business consulting practice and felt that this curriculum was critical for her in her role. So that would be a profile that joined. We also had a student, interestingly, that joined as was a journalist in business reporting, and they found this type of curriculum beneficial to them as they pivot to more of a business reporting with a climate lens. So just to give you examples of that, you would be asked in the admissions application, if interested in part-time, you would say yes or no. If you say yes, you have to provide a brief explanation of why you need to enroll part-time. So now I'm going to transition to the MS in Climate program. So the MS in Climate program, again, we're going from a 12-month program with the MA to a really a 21-month 50 credit hour program, gives graduates a diverse background and in-depth training in a specific areas of climate expertise and prepares them to be, of course, climate leaders at community, state, national, and international level. The biggest distinguishing characteristic, while the MA is a tight 12-month journey, the MS is going to give you that additional semester. And you might say to me, Alfred, you have 5 semesters here, and you're saying just one more semester. The semester in between the summer semester, forgive me, is not a class semester. In fact, there's no tuition. It's going to be an internship semester. So it's really a 4 semester in terms of an in-classroom journey. This program, the MS program, the biggest distinguishing characteristic is the ability to dive deeper in a specific topic of climate change. So how do you dive deeper? It's through a second credential. So not only are you getting a Master of Science in Climate, but you're also getting a second New York State level credential, which is an advanced certificate in one of the 3 topics that we are offering: climate systems and analytics, climate and disaster management, and climate and food systems. And for my own fun trivia moment, just to make sure you guys are listening, does anybody want to guess which one is the most popular currently? Which certificate is the most popular? Feel free to, at the current moment in terms of applicants. I think it's always fascinating. Some of you might have, this might be the second time you're joining, so you might already know the answer, although who knows, things change, you know? So in terms of in terms of this timeline, you know, you share much of the same climate core courses. And your fall and spring semester look very similar to that of the MA program, but things start to diverge. Specifically, in the spring semester, you start working on your certificate requirements as well. And then, of course, in the summer, you have an internship opportunity with which you will pursue. And then for the second fall semester, you will wrap up the climate core. And then you will continue on with electives, certificate requirements. And in the spring semester, you will again continue with elective, certificate. And finally, you will conclude with a capstone as well in the spring. So while MA in Climate and Society students do a capstone in their final summer semester, MS and Climate students perform a capstone in their final spring semester. And now let me take a quick peek of the Q&A. Amara, analytics, ding, 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 you're the winner. If you were here right now, I'd toss you a t-shirt. You know what I mean? A climate school, but this is in the virtual world. So congratulations. You get a nice warm congratulations from me. In terms of the core, I want to just note this. The MS in Climate shares a very similar core. And in fact, the courses that are the same, you will be in the same courses with MA students. So you will be sitting in the same auditoriums. You'll have the same discussion section opportunities as the MA students, or labs, for example. So for example, dynamics of climate variability and change, Taylor thoughtfully noted it's a flipped classroom model. She was able to digest the videos in her time and then attend the live lectures. Dynamics is the same for both MA and MS. Climate mitigation and climate adaptation, those 2 courses are the same. Climate justice theory, practice, and policy with Professor Sheila Foster, also the same. The quantitative models for climate application, the same. So this R course that Taylor noted with the modeling. What's not the same, there's a second quantitative methods course that all MS students will be taking. And that second course will vary depending on the advanced certificate with which you select. So for example, those of you that are joining the MS in Climate program who ultimately select the Climate Systems and Analytics Advanced Certificate, your second quant course is going to be a course focused on Python. That's the tool that you would be using. For those of you that select this climate and disaster management or climate and food systems, you would be given a more flexible selective option for your climate core second quantitative methods course. So you could take perhaps a machine learning class or a GIS course, but there would be more options for you to choose from. So that's the MS in Climate core. Again, remarkably similar to the MA Climate core. There's really just one course of distinction. We're swapping out the history of climate change. You're not taking that. That's an MA student course. Instead, you're taking a second quantitative methods course, okay? In terms of these advanced certificates now, The three options in which we lightly noted, you have the climate systems and analytics, which provides the critical skills and understanding to interpret and analyze climate and weather data, understand climate model predictions and projections, assess climate related risk to human and natural systems. I think risk is a huge component of this, and develop strategies for mitigating these effects. Then you have climate and disaster management, which provides students with a foundational knowledge and skill needed to conduct and apply research in various intersecting disciplines relevant to managing disasters. You'll gain insights into disaster management, particularly in relation to preparedness, response, recovery, and long-term resiliency. And then finally, climate and food systems. And this is really fascinating because I wasn't familiar with climate and food systems before coming to the climate school. About a third of the carbon that's released each year is related to the food system. So food systems are a critical component when you're thinking of addressing um, climate change and addressing the climate crisis. So it's a focus on the intersections of climate and food systems, food production, and human livelihood. Students learn how to apply evidence-based approaches to food system transformation, gaining critical skills and knowledge for professional pathways in this emerging field. In terms of, before I actually go into each one of the advanced certificates, and I'm not going to go into great detail, but I want to give you an idea of the 18 credit structure for each. What I always like to stress is for those of you that are interested in the MS in Climate program, I don't want you to feel like you have to commit to an advanced certificate at the time of admissions application. What you are going to do is you will be sharing with the admissions committee which advanced certificate you're most interested in, and you will also weave in a narrative in your admissions application, in your statement of purpose about that advanced certificate. But you interestingly don't officially declare the advanced certificate until the end of your fall semester. So after you matriculate to the program. So for example, you might select climate systems and analytics as the advanced certificate that you're most interested in the admissions application. Your acceptance letter will not identify the advanced certificate. It won't stipulate the advanced certificate. You'll be accepted to the MS in Climate program, but the advanced certificate won't be listed. Why? Because you actually don't officially declare it until your fall semester at the end. So let's say through the fall semester, you all of a sudden change and you say, you know what, I have this newfound interest in climate and food systems, and this is the area I wish to focus in. That's when you would officially declare it, okay? To give you an idea of the structure, these 18 credit hour certificates, 12 of the credits of each of the 18 are required courses. So for example, climate systems and analytics, the 12 credit requirements are climate risk assessment, introduction to climate modeling, GIS for climate application, and computing and research methods for climate data science. And then you have the remaining 6 credits of what we call selectives. Selectives being electives, but not a full-on choose your own adventure elective journey. It's a kind of a menu item of electives to choose from. Many of these, this is just a small sampling, quite frankly. There's more courses than the bullets listed here. But for example, an introduction to complex climate risk, this is going to be a new elective that we're launching this year specifically for the analytics, the climate systems and analytics certificate. But then we have students that cross-register, and I am going to talk about cross-registration shortly. And I'm going to pivot back to Taylor to hear a little bit more about how she approached cross-registration. But each of the advanced certificates have cross-registration opportunities as a part of their selectives. So you'll notice there that there's 2 courses that highlight the SEAS, S-E-A-S, that's the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. They include machine learning for environmental engineering and science, and then environmental data analysis and modeling. Those are 2 courses in the selective journey you could cross-register at the School of Engineering for. Alternatively, we have a course at SPS, which is the School of Professional Studies, Climate Science for Decision Makers, Modeling, Analytics, and Applications. That's another course that could go towards your selective list, so to speak. So again, the cross-registration journey is still a part of the narrative as it relates to the advanced certificate options. Then we have climate and disaster management advanced certificate. Again, same structure. You have a required 12 credits. So climate change and disaster management, building equitable community partnerships in disaster risk management, applied disaster research methods, and then finally post-disaster recovery, a focus on housing and economic sectors. Those are the required 4 courses. And then you have this selective option. Some of them are climate school, and some of them are embedded in other schools, like the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, or the School of International and Public Affairs, which is SIPA listed there. So again, you have some options. And then the final one is climate and food systems. Again, the required 12 credits, they include food systems and climate interactions, food equity, ethics and politics, global food trade and climate-related food system shocks, and then finally methods for food systems and analysis. And just to highlight a new acronym, because you're seeing lots of them right now, you'll see there on the selective course listings, food security, plant biology, climate change, and public health. MPH, that's a course at the Mailman School of Public Health. So just to give you another graduate school that you could potentially cross-register in. And those are the advanced certificates. Now, I do want to note summer internships. You'll notice here that the MA Climate and Society is strictly a capstone, while the MS in Climate has that built-in summer internships. You'll say to me, Alfred, if the MS in Climate is a new program, how do you have a listing of example summer internships? Well, interestingly, that's because the MA Climate and Society program previously used to have an internship or capstone option. Now it's exclusively capstone. So all that being said, we have a long-standing history of helping students in securing internships and that practical applied experience. Interestingly, we've also had instances of students, and Taylor, that might be you, a student that secures the internship that turns into the full-time job, I believe. So we'll definitely talk about that through Taylor's journey. But these are just a few examples of some organizations our students have performed internships in. Again, as an MS in Climate student, you'll be expected to perform an internship between your first and second year. And then we have capstone workshops, which is a phenomenal opportunity both for MS in Climate and MA in Climate and Society students. Bearing in mind, MA students complete the capstone in their final summer semester. MS in Climate students will complete the capstone in their final spring semester. But what I like to note is these are just a few examples of organizations that we worked with. I say the same thing over, so forgive me, guys, if you've attended some of my sessions. But I'm from the Tampa Bay area, and so from Florida. So the capstone workshop that I think was 2 years ago now was with WFLA TV and Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. That's like the NBC news affiliate down in the Tampa Bay area, and they assess Tampa Bay area's vulnerability compared to other cities along the West Coast relating to hurricanes. It was a really interesting capstone workshop when I went there to go view it. You know, obviously that area has been really hit hard, especially this season, by hurricanes. So we definitely need more of that research. And we've also worked with the UN, with the Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change. But feel free to take a look at the link Damaris included in the chat. You'll be able to not only look at the most recent listing, like for example, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, the MTA worked with us last summer. I believe the Environmental Defense Fund. You'll be able to see some of the organizations that worked with us last summer, the students that worked on the project, and usually it's between 3 to 6 students. And then we have links, hyperlinks to the YouTube videos. So you can actually see not only the deck, but you see them presenting their project live. So that's the capstone workshops. This is also applied learning. Students participate in kind of collaborative interdisciplinary learning. I made mention that there's now a new applied learning 1 and 2 component in the first year, or in your first 2 semesters, I should say, of both programs. And this is largely going to be fleshed out through case-based learning, but also I always argue the summer internship and capstone are the penultimate applied learning, transforming concepts into practice. Now, climate school electives. This is now bringing Taylor back into the mix, because I think this is so often the #1 question we get asked by prospective students, is to learn a little bit more about how to approach the elective journey, what electives you took. So, I want to say that at Columbia Climate School, the listing of electives has only grown. I started in March of 22, and that academic year, students that started in the fall 21 had 3 climate school electives. Now we offer over 20 different climate school electives each academic year, and they really range from food systems and climate interactions. You'll notice that's going to become part of the climate and food systems certificate course. So we've offered this a couple times, but also politics of climate in Asia, or climate change and disaster management, Black ecologies, climate and energy justice practicum. The list goes on with the climate school electives. And I always like to stress we're also extremely thoughtful when it comes to offering electives. We have and actually, Taylor, were you and I at that sustainability skills seminar on financing renewable energy with Nadia? We were, right? We were at did you end up taking the course? Forgive me, I'm putting you on the spot. No, okay.
No, I
We'll
didn't.
talk about your elective journey anyways, but yeah. So what I like to say is like, yeah, Taylor and I attended a sustainability skills seminar together, and it was specifically conducted by the professor of financing renewable energy. So Nadia Zensk hosted it. And you're going to say, Alfred, where are you going with this? What I'm trying to glean here and share with you is that we're being extremely thoughtful about the electives with which we offer and how the electives can complement one another in particular. So, for example, this fall semester, so Taylor actually graduated obviously in the summer of 24. So, since Taylor's graduation, you'll find this interesting, Taylor. We offered that course, that financing renewable energy course again in the fall, but we also offered climate policy and investment. So financing in the fall semester. So financing renewable energy is taught by Nadia Zentz, and this course examines the ingredients necessary to financing a renewable project to make it economic. And you're looking at capital available to successfully finance a project, along with analyzing the revenue models for renewable investors that require returns to justify that investment. So think of the financing renewable energy as the private sector lens to climate finance. But then Lisa Sachs, who is phenomenal, taught the climate policy and investment course. And obviously, oftentimes the private sector doesn't start moving until the policy, the public sector dictates. And so Lisa taught that course. This course explains the interrelated challenges to investing in energy transition and see the big picture. Is important to really understand the policies or practices at a granular level. So looking at energy transition. So I think this was like a beautiful example of how the climate school is being very thoughtful about complementing electives with one another. And then the elephant in the room that I keep hinting at when it comes to advanced certificates, certainly, but now with the MA Climate and Society, which I promise you Taylor's going to share hers, but is the cross registration. The idea that you're embedded at Columbia Climate School, but what's the word we keep emphasizing over and over and over again? Interdisciplinary. So how can we not, as a climate school, as this new professional school, not take advantage of some of the most incredible and esteemed professional graduate schools across the country, including Columbia Law School or Columbia School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation, the School of International and Public Affairs, the Mailman School of Public Health. We have some partner programs at the School of Professional Studies with sustainability in mind. So cross-registration is also a part of the journey. And I'm going to pause there now. And to kind of bring this to life, so to speak, I would love to ask Taylor, how did you approach the electives, and did your approach change while in the program, so to speak? So I'm asking that question from 2 points. Yes, the mechanisms, I know there's pain points with even cross-registration. Feel free to share that. But did you take this potpourri approach to the electives? Did you come in with a specific vision in mind? How did you approach it? Share. We just do tell. We love it.
Yeah, like I said earlier, my passion kind of began with waste. I know it sounds weird to say, but and what I discovered through like my volunteer efforts and things like that, a lot of that can be dictated through policy, and I think that's the best way to move the needle. So I focus a lot on law and policy and federal and state and local. So I focused on a lot of classes that were law and policy and then also infrastructure based. So I did actually a lot of the SUMA programs, and I loved those classes. They were great. And what's cool about those ones is, and again, I haven't been at um, all the schools, but they were taught by working professionals, so they were able to like be like, oh yeah, earlier this week this happened, and that was always so cool to just like hear like their work and what they're currently doing. And then the law school, like I said, Sheila Foster, which you'll get a taste of her. Um, that was like such a challenging class, but like just sitting in class listening to her, I just was like, I want to soak all this up. So yeah, I don't know, did that answer your question,
No,
Alfred?
it did. No,
Okay.
that was phenomenal and it's varied. And did you take, out of curiosity, just out of curiosity, did you take any climate school electives? Sheila's technically it would have been a cross
Yeah,
register, I think. I mean, it would have been both law and climate. Which did you take any specific
I'm
I
trying to remember. I
and
didn't.
no worries. And I'll say one other thing, just because Columbia University really does love the acronyms, and Taylor threw one out there, SUMA. That's the MS in Sustainability Management program,
Mhm.
interestingly. And so we also had Grayson participate in one. Grace, I don't
Oh,
know,
good.
did you take, yeah, did you take some with Grayson? Grayson was like, I took a lot of those sustainability management courses, funny enough.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't in any of my electives, but
Yeah.
I saw him at the happy hour the other day.
Oh, I
So,
know. I missed it. I'm really bummed I missed that one. So yeah, and did you have, you lightly referenced it, Taylor. You mentioned what your favorite course, interestingly, was an elective course. Could you share with us which elective course and why? Did you already do that? I'm sorry. Was
I had a few.
Yeah.
I don't think I could like say what was like one favorite, because they were so varied. But like I said, Sheila Foster's, which I believe at the time was a climate school elective, because who was the other professor that was in such high demand?
Michael Gerard. You
Yes.
guys are getting all the tea. You guys are getting all the truth here. Yeah, yeah. Michael Gerard, who's incredible as well, and at Columbia Law School, and he's the director of the Sabin Center for
Mhm.
climate law. I forgive me, Damaris, if you could type in the Sabin Center and put it in the chat, some people might be interested. But anyways, continue, Taylor. Yeah,
Yeah, so I really enjoyed Sheila Foster's class. And then there were two other courses. Again, these are the electives that I really enjoyed. Um, it was environmental law and policy in New York City, taught by Laura Popa. And that was just like the final project, which we worked on all semester, was so much fun. Basically, we had to uh, come up with a policy for New York City that was climate based and would reduce like greenhouse gases or, improve sustainability measures and things like that. And then one that I took in the spring semester was sustainable infrastructure in New York City, and that was taught by Carter Strickland. And then he also had kind of a working professional colleague uh, teach it with him, and that was Vlada. I'm blanking on her last name, but that was a great class, and they're both, at the City of New York, and Vlada runs NYCHA, so the New York City Housing Authority, and it was again just like so fascinating to hear their arc and how they got to where they are and the projects they're currently working on.
that's
And then
amazing.
I do want to point out something else. Like I also, like Alfred said earlier on, that's a flat tuition. So I kind of took advantage of that because I quit my job, to come here. And I was like, I'm gonna use every single credit I'm paying for. So I took dance classes at Barnard and darkroom photography. And so just like, do something fun or take a creative writing course, you can
That's
also opt
amazing, Taylor.
classes.
I love that. I really do love that. Yeah. And Taylor's referencing some courses that maybe didn't necessarily count toward, they have to be, in order for them to count toward the elective, they have to be graduate level or 4,000 level, I should say. But yeah, if that's something, that's Taylor, I love those examples.
You're already paying for it.
Yeah,
So
that's right. 100%. 100%. That's brilliant. And then, you know what, Taylor, you know what I kind of glossed over, and we're going to talk about professional development, so I could reserve it, but why not now? Is because we talked about this summer internship, and let me just career and professional development. I think this is now actually a perfect time to talk about it, but um, we do have a dedicated career management office. We have employer info sessions. You can meet with Mindy Levinson's our director of career management, and our her associate is um,
Ava.
Ava, thank you. Oh my gosh, Taylor, you're amazing. Yeah, Ava Rupert. And you can have one-on-one appointments with them. You can deep dive into negotiation strategies when you do get that job offer. Um, they also host an alumni mentorship program. You might say, well, Alfred, the climate school is new. How does that work? Well, interestingly, the alumni mentorship program includes not only the MA Climate and Society, but also partner programs across, like we have an NPA, an environmental science policy program that participates, along with sustainability programs that Taylor lightly referenced that also participate. So you could participate through the alumni mentorship program, where you get matched with an alumni mentor. Typically, that mentorship begins in the late fall semester. And we also have the All Ivy Environmental and Sustainable Development Career Fair. And what I love about Taylor, because I feel like Taylor can have quite a bit to talk about this, but I'll just quickly preview. And then we'll go into kind of Taylor's experience last year in the program and specifically what her summer looked like. But this is a very large career fair that's hosted every February. We invite all the Ivy League to descend upon Columbia University's campus. Columbia Climate School is responsible for the actual operation of it and the invitation to all the employers. We had over 90 employers and around 1,000 students from, again, across the Ivy League that participated. But let me pause there. Taylor, I would love to hear kind of what was your summer like? And I purposely did that because we paused on this slide, but how did you find like the career fair, for example? You see what I'm doing here. Anyways, yeah.
Yes, I actually found my internship at the career fair. So there, before the career fair, I looked at the list of companies and organizations that were going to be there and researched them and definitely, printed out my resume and got it all souped up for them and targeted those booths. And also, like, again, you don't want to come off salesy, but
No.
like I had questions prepared for them. So I was curious about their organizations. And I think it's also a time for you to figure out if it's going to be right for you. Like, don't just try to sell yourself, but you are also interviewing them. So yeah, North Star Recycling, honestly, at first I thought it was like a hauling company, but that's not at all what it is.
Yeah.
It's actually like waste management for the industrial level. And so, yeah, I had like all these questions for them. And again, by asking those questions, really cleared up what my idea was of them. And I applied to the position, and actually, the recruiter remembered me. So she was like, "Oh, don't even need to do the first interview. You're already on to the next round." I was like, "Oh, sweet, awesome." And so, yeah, that's how I got my internship, and which now turned into a job, and I'm really enjoying it. It's also been like a learning curve, and it wasn't until maybe like a month ago that I really feel confident in my new role. And, I started in June. So, yeah, no, I'm
That's
really liking
excellent.
it though.
Oh, thank you, Taylor. Thank you for sharing that. And so just as to give you kind of a background of the class of 2022 and 2023, it's amalgamation of them, but because climate is interdisciplinary, the ultimate goals of our climate school students can be quite varied. It varies in terms of industry and sectors they go into. So you can see that, for example, the public sector represents 21%, the private sector 31%, 27% is nonprofits and NGO space. So it is varied. And in terms of where our students go on to work, the types of organizations, you can see these are actual roles. The World Bank climate policy analyst or UNICEF's geospatial risk analyst. Boston Consulting Group has hired some of our students specifically in the climate and sustainability space. City of Los Angeles. So we do have some students at the municipal city levels. And of course, at the federal level, the Environmental Protection Agency, for example, certainly has hired our students. Um, in terms of financial aid now, what I'd like to do is just highlight that number one, there are merits fellowship, forgive me, scholarships that you're automatically considered for at the time of your admissions application. So if Damaris, if you don't mind sharing in the chat box the tuition and financial aid link, that would be phenomenal. In terms of the tuition and financial aid, there's also specific sections underneath that go into each one of these. So climate school scholarships, I just want to reference, you're automatically considered for a climate school scholarship. And I will say we are striving to increase the scholarship level, but really and truly increase the ratio of scholarships that we are able to offer. The scholarships range this year from anywhere from 10,000 to $35,000. And again, these are scholarships that you're automatically considered for at the time of your admissions application. A brand new announcement that just occurred is, in fact, I haven't even sent the email yet. This just got updated on the website within the last 2 days, is the Dean's Graduate Scholarship. Uh, we've received funding and we're very excited about this for what's called the Dean's Graduate Scholarship. This is exclusively for applicants to the MS in Climate program. Bearing in mind the MS in Climate program is a 50 credit hour program with a 21-month timeline. So this Dean's Graduate Scholarship, there will be a limited number of these. I want to note that, but it's going to be $50,000 in value. And in terms of these Dean's Graduate Scholarship, you will automatically be considered for them as well. The key here for both of these opportunities is when to apply. You need to apply by the priority deadline, which is January 15th, 2025. Everybody joining the call today, everybody logged in today, learning more about Columbia Climate School. If you're interested in fall 2025, your deadline should be January 15th, 2025. I can't emphasize that enough. And then we also have external fellowships. And again, the website that Damaris highlights in the chat box actually gives you a full directory of external fellowships that are free databases. In fact, some of them take you to other universities that link out to them. So definitely check those out. The key to external fellowships is just remember, it does take a lot of time on your part. It takes a lot of research and staying on top of deadlines. And you got to do that research now. You know, what's always unfortunate is a student is admitted and then they're asking in March, well, what are the external fellowships? Well, I can show you a directory of them, but many of those deadlines already passed by then. So you really have to give your due diligence and do that research now. And then, of course, there's federal and private loans. Many of our students utilize federal and private loans to help fund their education. We work with Columbia University Student Financial Services Office for financial aid this upcoming fall semester. In terms of also, for any international students joining us, you might be thinking, well, what would be my other loan opportunities? There are two organizations that do lend to international students that don't require a U.S. cosigner. One is called Empower and the other is called Prodigy Finance. So just to highlight those opportunities as well, we have a number of international students that have worked with them. And that brings me to the online application, my favorite portion of the presentation. So the online application, again, to reference the priority deadline for both the MA in Climate and Society and the MS in Climate is January 15th, 2025. Decisions will be released in March. So that's a big benefit of the January 15th deadline. You get decisions in March. And again, highly, highly recommended for both the Climate School Scholarship and Dean's Graduate Scholarship for the MS in Climate program. So make sure that you apply by January 15th, 2025. And then the final deadline, let's say you can't apply by January 15th, but March 1st is more feasible for you. March 1st would be the final deadline for fall 25. The online application, everything you would upload online. So you would upload your resume, 2 letters of reference. One must be academic only if you've been enrolled in a university within the last 5 years. I want to be transparent about that. So if it's been more than 5 years, one of the recommendation letters can be a professional recommendation. That's not a problem. In fact, that might behoove you. And then in terms of transcripts, we do require unofficial transcripts to make an admissions decision. So, but if you attended multiple universities, we would want all of them. So let's say you went to the University of Central Florida for undergrad and your graduate degree was completed at UNC Chapel Hill. We would need both of those unofficial college transcripts uploaded to the system. For any of you joining us where English is not your first language and English is not the language of instruction in your undergraduate university, then we would need a TOEFL, an IELTS, or a Duolingo English test, one of those 3 English tests. And we do need a minimum on those English tests. And the reason for that is because obviously the entire curriculum is taught in English. All your assignments will be in English, and you have to have a strong command of the English language in order to succeed at Columbia University. So, again, the TOEFL minimum would be a 100, the IELTS minimum is a 7.5, and a 135 on the Duolingo English test. Only one of those English tests are required. And again, just to give you an example, though, if you're an international student, and let's say you are from China, but you attended Boston University for your bachelor's degree, even though English is not your first language, the language of instruction in your university was English. So then you're waived of the English language test. I want to note that as well. And then finally, the statement of purpose. The statement of purpose is up to 1,000 words. In that statement of purpose, we want you to share for the MA in Climate and Society. And these statements of purpose, by the way, are quite similar. We want you to share your key experiences that contributed to your commitment to work on climate change issues. What are your academic and professional goals, and what knowledge and skills are you hoping to develop through enrollment in a climate school? And finally, why is enrollment in Climate and Society critical in helping you achieve your goals? And most importantly, at least to me, is which climate core course are you most excited to complete? Don't forget that last bullet. Which climate core course are you most excited to complete? Because that's, as I mentioned, the spinal cord or the through line of this program. So be reflective of it. Think about it. Maybe it's climate justice, and maybe you have a personal story to weave into that, or perhaps it's adaptation or mitigation, or you're extremely jazzed at the prospect of learning about the science of climate change, and dynamics just so happens to be at the top of the list. But think about that climate core. And then finally, the applying to the MS in climate, the the statement of purpose prompt is nearly identical, except one key additional piece of data that you need to share: detail which advanced certificate you're most interested in pursuing and why. Again, the maximum word count is up to 1,000 words. Um, and then that concludes the session. Again, I'm Alfred Ayub. Joining me was the fabulous, the one and only Taylor Atkinson. Taylor, we can't thank you enough. And then Damaris Diaz, who was the leader of our Q&A section. Thank you, Damaris, for helping so much. I'm now going to stop share. And Taylor, I know I only got you committed to 1 hour, and I apologize if you're able to stay on for a couple more minutes, but if you can't, that's totally fine. I'd love to, if there are any specific questions that were directed at Taylor, I'd love to just really quick focus on those in the immediacy.
Yeah,
Um,
I can stay for a few more minutes.
I I
And I have
appreciate it.
been answering some questions in the chat,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
but I'm
Awesome.
happy to expand on those.
Awesome. Yeah. If there's anything that like you saw that was a question that you think was especially relevant that you'd want to think, feel free to highlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually just answered one. They were asking about like the job market and if a lot of people graduated with jobs on the line. And it's hard for me to say because I don't, there was 105 in my class. I don't keep up with everyone, but I know like the people that I still stay in touch with. A lot of people went into policy, and I know a few people that moved to DC with a job, and a lot of people also went into the energy sector. But I directed them towards you or the career office because you guys are gonna be keeping up with students and know what jobs people accepted. And I talked to my friends, but not the entire cohort. So
Right.
that's what
Right.
I would say.
That's great. Thank you, Taylor. I just realized, forgive me, when I was speaking about the application requirements, I misspoke in a specific section. It was about the recommendation letters, and I said you need at least one academic recommendation. But if it's been more than 5 years, I want to say if it's been more than 5 years, if you've been out of school, you actually only you can use two professional recommendations. So forgive me if it's been many years outside of school, the one academic recommendation is only required of students who have been in school within the last 5 years. So for the student asking about it's been more than 10, my apologies, I misspoke in that moment. Um, in terms of uh, let's see here. I'll just briefly say how big is the MS in climate cohort? We're anticipating a cohort between 45 and maybe 60 students next year. That's what we're anticipating for the MS in climate cohort, which would be a new cohort. What actually, this is good. Allie's asking, Taylor, what helped you with the harder classes? Could you
I
reflect on?
just saw that. Honestly, studying with friends, like we would go to, totally blanking on the business library right now. What's the business library called again?
Uris Hall.
Eurosol,
Uris?
yes,
Yes.
because that's a library that you can, chat, like, don't be too noisy, but, studying with as a group was always very helpful, and then, going right after class, especially for quant and dynamics when things are still fresh in your mind, going right after class to work with a group on the homework, that was super helpful, because everyone had a different look at it, and it also helped things make more sense, and then again, working on it when it was still fresh in your mind was very helpful.
That's fantastic, Taylor. Another question was relating to just briefly, somebody's interested in the MPA DP program at the School of International and Public Affairs. And I can just say very briefly, if you're applying to different professional schools at Columbia, you're able to apply to both because they're two completely different applications. It would almost be as if you're applying to two different universities, two different admissions committees. So that is allowed. For the climate school, though, you can only apply to either the MA in Climate and Society or the MS in Climate. You can't apply to both. So just answering that briefly. And then another question that came in is how do you or will the career outcomes of this program differ from those for the MS in Sustainability Management at SPS? I can just share this. SPS's outcomes are about 90% private sector. So that's really the focus. Whereas the MA in Climate and Society, you saw that pie chart, it really does vary. It can be a sizable number will go into the private sector, but we have a significant number of students. And in fact, Taylor even shared kind of thinking about the municipality lens or the policy lens, the public sector lens. So I would say that would be, I don't know, Taylor, if you have any insights on that, but the only other thing I want to say is we also recognize these are all similar and mission-driven programs, meaning there's a Venn diagram here, and there's certainly overlap. So, a student, you in the MA Climate and Society program could be applying to the same roles as the School of Professional Studies SUMA student, for example, and working in similar organizations with similar degree outcomes. So, um, let's see, is there any other ones? It says, can you please remind me once again on the component of the statement of purpose and whether or not a high GPA is also accepted for getting acceptance? So Kadir is asking about GPA. I just want to stress that the admissions committee takes a holistic approach when evaluating a candidate. It's not about a minimum GPA or standardized test score for that matter, other than showing that English is a strong foundation. It, it's truly about your goals and ambitions in the climate space and how our program can help you achieve those goals. I want to just plug one other link, and Damaris might have already done that, so forgive me, but in the chat box, we are hosting an application tips and strategy session, and that application tips and strategy session is occurring in actually 2 days. So you're going to see current students in the program deep dive into how they approach the application process. So I really encourage you to check that out and register for that event. We just posted the link. And we'll definitely go into more details on that. And then for just one more question, circular economy, are there any others ones aligned with this program? You mentioned the possible professional certifications lead. I can't think of other professional certifications necessarily, but feel free to, if you email us, Anonymous, if you email us, I can definitely find out through our professional development team. And then, yeah, so definitely any questions about the statement of purpose, definitely come to that application tips and strategy session and email us at admissions@climate.columbia.edu. So thank you again, everybody. That does come to time. Taylor, thank you so much for staying over and thank you for your participation. I can't
Thanks for
thank you
inviting
enough.
me.
Well, thank you, Taylor. I just want to say that. And I think actually the fact that you were willing to come just shows you everybody the type of learning community that we're fostering here is you guys are mission driven and you wish to give back. So thank you so much, Taylor. And I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the day. And we have a couple other info sessions coming up in December. The application tips and strategies is coming up. So I hope to see all of you guys there as well. All right, Taylor, take care and have a good rest of the morning. I know it's early by you, so thank you.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right,
You guys have a
bye.
good one.
You as
Bye.
well. Bye.